Hello, welcome to Practical Wisdom Stories, Soul Searching. My name is Nikki Kleppel, and our guest today is Sarah Abdelmataleb. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Nikki.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. You have been a friend and a past client and student for many years. And I'm excited at the end of this interview to highlight a video. You were one of the first videos that I ever did, and you're still pinned to my start of my Facebook page about your story. So we'll have that added on the end. So thank you even 4 years ago for doing that with me. Maybe starting off, since we met from Dale Carnegie, what was your biggest benefit from when you took the program?
Oh gosh, well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure having this connection and having this conversation with you, Nikki. Um, I would say one of the biggest benefit, and I got reminded of it 2 days ago from my daughter. One of the biggest benefit is gaining confidence. Originally coming from the Middle East, and there was a lot of I was struggling with a lot of culture issues and how to cope in, how to fit in, etc. And one of the biggest things that I've learned from Dale Carnegie is that how to position myself, how to speak confidently, how to pick up questions, how to handle conversations, arguments, etc. So I would say the biggest gain is like gaining confidence, handling different conversations, conflicts, etc. That was one of the biggest gain. And my daughter reminded me of that 2 days ago, because now working, as we all working from home, as back to school thing, looks like she was keeping an ear out when I was driving the conversations with my coworkers and the meetings. And then I was taking a walk with her the other day, and she told me, "Wow, mommy, you are so confident." And I was like, "What made you say that?" She goes, "Because I always listen to you in the meeting, and I always like watch you how you're talking to your colleagues, and how even like you are sharing your thoughts. You are so confident. I wish I was like you. Now I'm doing this presentation." She's saying, like, now I was doing this presentation to my classmates and to my teacher. I always fear how to speak up, but I'm learning from you. So yeah.
Isn't it interesting how our kids do, watch us and learn? It's kind of interesting, even just doing this interview. My son, who's a junior, just interviewed a freshman for the high school morning show. And I was just, gosh, so warm to think. I mean, I don't think he necessarily did it because of me, but it's interesting that they, maybe are watching or picking up or getting notes on confidence. And I guess on that note, if you were to give her advice other than just her watching what you do, what's a story from your life that, was kind of a defining moment of helping you to feel more confident? And, maybe what advice would you give to your daughter and other young listeners?
So a little bit about me. I'm actually, I'm not gonna say retired archer, but I'm still practicing. I'm an archer. I used to compete internationally and nationally. I used to present my country, Egypt. So until this moment, I attribute a lot of things that I take to my work in terms of like behavior, handling tough situations, etc., to sports.
Okay.
I've learned determination from sports. I've learned how to be perseverant, meaning that I don't give up. As long as I have a goal, I've learned defining goals. As long as I have a goal in mind, I do what it takes just to reach to my goal, and do what I take within the boundaries of the values and principles that I always make sure that's ingrained in my daughter mindset, and how she's in her communication, how she's dealing with people. But at the same time, if there would be like one advice in line of like building confidence and positioning yourself, handling tough situations, it would be, don't lose hope. Have faith in yourself. Find a good balance between being overconfident and very underconfident. This is very tricky because, and actually I told this to my daughter in the same situation when she was telling me that I'm very confident. I told her, guess what? I still believe that I'm not confident enough. And guess what? If I look back at myself like 5 years ago, I actually noted the Dale Carnegie class. I told her if I look back at myself before I take Dale Carnegie, because I attribute this a lot of things that I've learned from Dale Carnegie, I would tell you that I was a person who can get into the room, speak no more than just one sentence, because of the fact I always have this feeling that maybe what I'm going to bring up to the table is not sufficient enough or is not relevant. So I always have this fear of like, am I adding value? Should I speak up? Maybe I can just fill up offline. I always take this like as my way out of like avoiding having a lot of conversation in a big setup or in front of like a big group and audience. And she was like, wow, that's amazing. And I told her it's not easy. It also takes a lot of support system around you. Support system from your mentors, from your parents who believe the most in you, from sponsors. I would say like I've also been very grateful and blessed enough to have sponsors in my work in my company as well. And I say sponsors because those are people who really believe in me, and they try to find a lot of opportunities that fit the most with my skill set, with my talents, with my work style. And at the same time, they also make sure that I'm surrounded with the right support system. So it's, if I would kind of like summarize that, one advice is believe in yourself, find the right balance between being overconfident and underconfident, because it's very challenging. Yeah. Find the support system. Always look for sponsors, mentors. Be very mindful about who really knows you well enough to give you a genuine advice of how to improve, how to work on yourself.
Yeah. And what about now? How are you, I guess, paying that forward since you've had people help you as mentors? Tell us about a mentee relationship that you've had and how you've been able to foster that in someone else.
A very recent one, Microsoft. I work for Microsoft. Microsoft actually in the summer internship timeframe, there's a group of people and the woman group. They actually formed what they call it woman internship sponsorship. And they were basically calling for volunteers. So I saw the one of their flyers and the newsletter, and I signed up for it. And I actually was lucky enough to have one of software engineer intern from one of the engineering team that I work very closely with. So it's like a month and a half long mentorship thing, and you take it on your own pace. It depends on what agreement you have with the mentee. I had almost like 5 sessions across 1 month or something. Okay. 2 of them I was on vacation. But the idea here, like, I learned from her too. She was a person, she's a running senior computer science. I forgot what university she's studying, but she's very determined. She's sharp. She would come to the meeting, to the mentorship meeting, where very precise questions and situations that she would like to discuss. And I would say like the first meeting was very interesting because we were both kind of like testing the water in terms of like what styles we basically are, and how open we can be, what is our boundaries, etc. And I kind of like, I like to take the lead and open up the environment to make sure that she has the safe environment to speak up and to talk, whichever, because the whole idea of this mentorship session is help her achieve her goals, grow, find the right opportunity after she graduates, and open up the horizon as much as I can for her. So it was very nice. I feel like, and I got a very nice note from her when she concluded the program, which actually just made my day. She was very appreciative for the whole discussion that we had in the sessions, and we're staying in touch until now. So the point here is that one of the things that I'm having as my personal goal is pay back to the community and try to find this opportunity where I can actually share the knowledge, share the expertise, learn as well, again, because life is a continuous learning journey, right? find the opportunity where I can actually share those experiences with whoever might be out there needing some help navigating through those challenges, for which I always look up for any of those opportunities like mentorship, sponsorship, etc.
Yeah, I love how you really value that it goes both ways. So, I think a lot of times people think that volunteering is just giving to someone else, and you really highlight, you learned a lot and you got a lot and you felt good and, receiving that letter as well. So, and that I think it can be grounded, obviously this is like kind of a soul searching, we're, going through this
Yeah.
season to kind of dig deeper, have conversations, with our kids that are really meaningful, et cetera, with mentors and mentees. So thank you for that. And, I know that for my faith, the idea of like giving and is receiving and, how important that is. I'm wondering, is there a verse from the Quran that's your favorite or is really meaningful for you?
I nothing actually, not a precise verse from the Quran, but we also we know that we believe in Prophet Muhammad as well. So Prophet Muhammad has a lot of sayings that we also take as a role model.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes like it goes back to the point of giving back to the community and be generous with your learnings and everything that you gained in life as far as like what do you call it, like knowledge. This is I'm gonna say this is one of the guiding principle for various reasons. One reason is that it was not an easy educational journey that I had back then, and I'm still learning. I just got my MBA from Foster Business Schools last June, so I'm very thank you. I'm very blessed to add more knowledge to and skills to my skill set as well. So the point here is that coming back from a background that education or having a good quality education is a luxury. It's not really something that you take for granted. I always have this in mind of like, how can I make sure that I'm playing a role in offering whichever knowledge or education to whoever don't have the same don't have the right sources or the whatever resources they have in order to grow themselves and learn. So I've learned from that, from Muhammad's verse of Muhammad's saying is that be generous with your learning and knowledge. Don't waste an opportunity to share it with people. This is a way of generosity. This is a way of showing that you're not only a taker, you're a giver.
Yeah, fantastic. And, what about from your childhood? You said, certainly sports influenced you, but you're also leaning into that education. Did that come from your parents, your family, or is that like, was there a teacher, or have you always had that? Maybe what's a story from your childhood that instilled in you that appreciation for learning?
I think it goes both ways, from both sides actually. From one of the teachers that I had, my math teacher, she was I would say she was the very first one who believed in my capabilities and my abilities in education in general and solving problems, particularly since it was a math subject, etc. She's the first one who opened up my eye and into the world in a way of like she was always pushing me through. She was because she knows my capability. At that time I wasn't even aware of like what is my capability is. She was pushing my boundaries in a way that, hey, you need always to be out there learning what's new. Don't fear make mistakes. You will always make mistakes, but this is how you learn. And I learned from her as well is that how can I seek help? And until this moment, it's not an easy practice for me to raise a hand saying, hey, I need help. But I learned from her that way. This is one way of growing yourself, learning. And on the other hand, she also taught me that those people who we are seeking help from should be generous enough to share their knowledge, expertise, and experience with you, because this is also how they contribute to your growth.
Yeah.
That's
I
what I've
feel,
learned. Yeah.
yeah, it seems like this idea of an imposter syndrome, and, that is a big trigger, is asking for help. So, people might hear that and go, hey, that sounds great, but, I might get fired, or people are going to think I'm stupid, especially, being a woman in tech or something. So
Yeah.
how, is there either a mantra, or like, how do you kind of in that moment get over that nervousness for asking for help?
I won't be like, I'll be very open with you. It's, I'm learning as I'm going as well. At least, one of the things that what I continuously and consciously doing is try to keep track of like, what are the areas that I felt like it's not an area that my strength area, and how did I act in those situations where I'm lacking lacking knowledge. Did I fall back to the model of like keeping quiet, or did I ask questions in a way of like, and did I actually come very forward saying, by the way, in a meeting or like a one-on-one setup, by the way, I have a little bit of less knowledge in this domain, so I really appreciate your help bringing me up to speed in XYZ.
Okay.
This is one way of acknowledging the fact that I don't have the enough knowledge. Second is giving the whoever I'm talking to, the audience, is that I might be asking basic questions in your mind, but it's basic question because I don't have enough knowledge.
Yeah. And thanks for that framework. Just even how to phrase things is a great starting point.
Yeah.
Sarah, what about, during this season, it's just been so unprecedented, what is one thing that maybe you have reprioritized or discovered, maybe how have your values changed during this season of COVID and work from home and quarantine?
Yeah. Not really about values. It's values I think I got reinforced in the sense of like ensuring that I can play a role in helping other people, other maybe girlfriends, my friends in general, getting coping with the situation. That's one of the values that I have, which is helping others and giving others. But during that as well, because I tend to do this, overdo it, and it takes from the energy, it takes from my capacity in general. What I've learned is like how to find the right balance. Because one of my mentors back then taught me is that you need to think one way, that you are a resource that has a limited capacity. You're a human being in this life. You cannot allocate your resources and your capacity across zillion things. You have to set priorities. And that priorities need to be based on what do you believe is the right thing to do, and how much value it will add to whoever I'm doing or I'm contributing this to. So to the point about setting priorities, my priorities was my family, including my daughter, who is now she's a third grader. As we started this pandemic thing, she was in her last year in second grade, which was very painful because she's very active girl. She used to go out like 3 times a day after school with the classes here and activities there, but all staying home. So she was my first priority. Second is basically my work, and the way that I tackled work is that I was very open with my management and my team, saying I'm just going to block 2 hours in the morning, and that will be the 2 hours that I'm going to set up the whole day for my daughter, including like all the tools that she needs to do her homework, etc. And then afterwards I'll be available, and I'll check off in the evening, and I basically set the expectation on my availability and why I'm taking this time off. And I would say that it was not an easy decision to make because the old me would fear coming very open to my team or to my management, saying I'm not going to be available in a particular time of the day or whatever over the period, because I was always feared that it would be perceived that I'm slacking or I'm not going to be performing as they expecting me to perform. So yeah.
Yeah, you're so relatable, and especially so relevant now with back to school. Just even looking on social media, there's so many people who have posts about the anxiety of managing e-school, and so thank you just for kind of the phrase is like name it to tame it, and just being able to realize it's okay to have those conversations. You still
Yeah.
have a job. You're able to do that, and I think I'm seeing the corporate world be so much more um, open to
Yeah.
work-life connection, and maybe it's not work-life balance exactly, but just realizing you're going to see Zoom and Teams calls and little kids in their pajamas, and that was
Yeah.
actually one of my favorite times. And it was a Muslim gentleman actually, and I just loved because you could see his wife in the background and his little kid in the zip-up jammies, and like
Oh,
everyone on the
yes.
call was like, you're just like me, and I just
Yes.
that's something that especially sure in politics it seems like there's so many differences, but when we see people in their home and hear our faiths are different and our parenting
Hmm.
style is the same, I just feel like it's broken down so many barriers. It's been something that it's been a real blessing around
Yeah.
the challenges certainly of the pandemic. So thank you
Yeah.
for just being open and sharing that value with us. Sarah, one thing that I really appreciate is being able to be friends enough with you and be open enough to like be curious and kind of ask about your faith. And I have heard, sometimes people say, oh, why do you women have to cover your hair, and that it's like a burden? And you help me to see that differently. So would you share that with the audience as well?
So obviously I'm Muslim woman. I'm
Mhm.
originally from Egypt, from Middle East. Um, I wear hijab, and there's a lot of you would hear from a lot of Muslim women. And probably you've seen a lot of Muslim out there that you don't recognize whether they're Muslim because they're not wearing hijab. But I wear it because I believe, and there's a verse in Quran that tells us hijab is a way of respecting woman as a way of like woman is a gem. Everything about the woman should be only preserved for those who deserve that woman as uh, their queen in their life. Those are the people, the relative. Those are the definitely husbands and their first degree relative, etc. So it's up to me if I want to take it off or wear it, but I made that conscious decision because I'm a strong believer of who I am, and I'm a strong believer that um, me wearing hijab, not wearing hijab doesn't change anything about me.
Mm.
And I don't fear the perception or the stereotyping. So, and I'm all because of that. I always take the lead of open up the conversation if I see question marks, and some people are stereotyping me, saying, "By the way, me wearing that hijab doesn't mean that I'm covering my brain. I still have a brain." And I try to turn it into more of like fun stories out there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate because I think maybe um, a phrase I love is "don't believe everything you think," and I think it's easy to misunderstand or say, oh, as like a feminist, you're losing your independence or confidence or something, and not at all. Like, and you just really helped me to see things differently, and so thank you for just kind of shining a light on a different way. If some of our listeners don't have a friend that they can say, hey, can you help me to see this in a different way? So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that as well, and
Oh, my
letting
pleasure.
being a friend to our listeners as well. If you were to kind of summarize a piece of practical wisdom, what would you say?
Be yourself. Be yourself. Be generous with all what you can have, whether that being knowledge, whether that being it doesn't have something. It doesn't have to be something materialistic.
Mm-hmm.
Always be on the look of those opportunities where you can pay back to the community. Extend a hand for help, even if it's not an obvious thing to you that there's someone out there that needs help. Just be open to that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's you who you are. So just be yourself.
Yay. Well, and you've done that with us. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your story and your talent with us. We really appreciate it. And
Oh, thanks for having me. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
great.
That's very nice conversation. Thanks for having me,
Awesome.
Nikki.
Hi, my name is Nikki Kleppel, and
This is a story that happened a couple months ago. One of my students was talking about a childhood story about qualifying for the Olympics. And I went home and I told my boys, I said, oh, I heard a story about an Olympian today. And they said, where's he from? And I said, she is from Egypt and she is an archer. So she's here with me today. Sarah, realizing your story got me really thinking about some of the biases that we have on people, and hearing my boys say, assuming that an Olympic athlete is a man. And I'm wondering if you've had a similar situation at work where people maybe wouldn't assume a more introverted woman from Egypt is an Olympian. So can you tell us a story about how that came about with someone?
So here's the thing. Actually, the story is I found it very funny. So it's one of my colleagues. I was having this meeting with her, and then all of a sudden something came up, and then she started asking questions. I told her, yeah, I learned this kind of style when I was doing archery. And then she stopped me saying, hey, what are you saying? Like archery, like a bow and arrow? I told her, yeah. She told me, hey, forget about the meeting now. I need to learn more. That sounds to be interesting because how did you get to archery? How long? I told her, well, I've been doing archery for like 10 years. And she told me, wow, how far you've reached there? I told her, well, you can call it pro because I represented my Egyptian national team. So
And you qualified for the Olympics in Beijing?
Yes, and I got qualified also. So I competed also in the World Championship in Germany in 2009. So the point is that the whole conversation that happened gave me like an insight. Wow, it's very interesting that when you start open up to other people and trying to add more personal aspect to the conversation, that really facilitates the work styles, working with them moving forward. So I found it very interesting. It's not only about work and business, it's about learning other people. Advantage also to learn about you.
And it's two sides. So when we become genuinely interested in other people, we make a connection, and also to offer up information from us about those defining moments and what our values are and maybe about our personal life, so that we have a connection with people and the work goes smoother as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.